welcome to A Word with the Girls. I'm Emily, and I'm joined with my sisters, Molly and Abby. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. All right, so this is our first pilot episode where we kind of see where this is taking us. Abby, do you want to explain to our listeners how the structure goes?
So it's kind of cool. We're choosing one word from a word bank that we created, and from that word, it just facilitates a conversation from stories and from life experience, and then we just kind of see where it goes.
Awesome. But before we kind of dive into our podcast, where are we? What are we doing, Mal?
Well, we all just so happen to be in the same location right now, which is unique to us because we all live in different places, sort of. And yeah, we're taking advantage of the fact that we're all together to be able to record our very first podcast episode.
Yeah. So we're snuggled up on a couch with a snoring dog on the floor.
All the children are nestled in their beds.
Yes, all snug in their beds. Yeah.
So how's everyone doing?
It's been a really interesting weekend. It seems like every time the crew tries to get together, disaster ensues a little bit. So this weekend turned out a lot different than what we had thought. Yeah, Emily and Kevin were coming out to meet their newest niece. And we were also supposed to have some extended family come and join us as well. Our parents just got back from a 3-week-long cruise in Europe like 2 days ago. And of course they came back with COVID, so that threw everything off. Molly, also came down with a cold right before the weekend. We've also had an ER visit and, just all the things that a normal Evans family gathering includes.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we forget every time that this is how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, by now we should know that we shouldn't be surprised when we're met with obstacles and challenges, but I think that that's kind of the unique thing about us, and we're able to laugh about it and adjust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I'm proud at how flexible we've been this weekend. I'm just like, wow, this is not great, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we've come a long ways, I think.
And luckily, we're here in Colorado where the weather's nice, and I don't know, growing up, I think being outside is something we enjoy doing, so we're spending a lot of time outside together.
Because we have COVID.
Yeah.
Well, so as we said, like each podcast will be a word. This word is podcast.
Right. It's not as random as normally it would be.
Right. The word this week is
Podcast.
podcast.
So, when you think of the word podcast, what inspired us to even consider this venture, this journey of ours in starting this? I think it started with you, Mal.
Well, I'm usually the one who comes up with ideas, which is not always great, but that's a story for another time. However, I think, I listen to a lot of podcasts, including some podcasts that are done by sisters, and I think there's a unique dynamic there between family members who, are just kind of having a conversation, but then also have this dynamic that you can kind of sense through the microphone. And I think the three of us have become really, best friends, especially over the last 15 years. And so I think that's something really special. And I think the world could use some more positive and uplifting content, especially with people who have strong, healthy relationships with each other. So I just felt like, maybe we should try something.
Well, and I think at the root of it, even though we're all three sisters, we're all very different. And we each have such a different calling in our life, a perspective that's different, and just, yeah, each of us have a different way of viewing the world. And so, yeah, it could be any of our opinions, yeah, that we get to share, and it's just cool to be able to love one another through what each one has to offer.
Mm-hmm. And respecting those different perspectives, and I think because we're coming from three different viewpoints, a word may mean something totally different from the three of us.
Yeah.
It may be the same word, but the experience or the journey or whatever may be different. And I think that that's kind of the special thing. And hopefully this inspires people to want to have the same kind of depth and conversations with the people in their circle, whether that's family or friends or coworkers. Because I don't know, you don't want to go through life alone. We're not meant for this life alone, and I think it's fun to dig deeper with people.
Well, and I think it's fun. Like, we have so many stories, and we know the stories, but it's fun to like share that,
Mm-hmm.
and then have it in like a capsule.
Totally.
You know,
kind of get a glimpse into some of these like silly, what's the word, like inside. Like
yeah.
you get a peek inside the Evans girls. So
Yes.
I feel like some days the podcast, it may be more solemn or deeper, emotional, yeah, or it could be really funny. I guess that's kind of the beauty of where one word will take you.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'd say we've probably been dreaming and brainstorming about this for a good like 6 months or so. And like we created the word bank probably back in February of just like the most random words and put them into a program that just like generates them randomly. So obviously the word today is podcast, which is a little more intentional, but yeah, the word bank is quite random, so could lead to some really interesting conversations.
One, what I'm looking forward to is for the next couple episodes, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into like who we are as this unit of Evans sisters, like how we kind of like identify ourselves as these Evans sisters. But then we'll dig a little bit deeper into like each of us and kind of do like a, hot seat kind of thing to really get to know Molly, really get to know Emily, really get to know Abby. That way you listeners can get to know us a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So should we talk about like what are some of the podcasts that we listen to that are inspiring for us? Are we allowed to say other names of podcasts?
Do we want to out ourselves?
Well, that's also.
Well, that's you guys. Well, that I think alone is going to give perspective to like what we're putting in our ears and what we're listening to, and what's life giving for us individually in our unique life stage. Like because they're so different.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe share like your go-to podcast right now.
Oh man, a podcast that I'm kind of hooked on right now is Smartless, which I guess is like super popular. But what I like about that podcast is that it's like, these three famous actors who are interviewing a variety of people, but my favorite episodes are when they interview like people who are their best friends, who they go way back with, who they have stories with from the very beginning, and they talk about who inspires them and what they love about their jobs and their roles and things like that. And I love how it humanizes these people who are like celebrities. And again, I think it just comes back to that space of like, it's really cool to listen to people who like each other have a conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm trying to think. I feel like the one that I often go and listen to is The Holy Post. Mostly because I feel like the last few years have been really challenging for where I fit in the faith space in terms of perspective. And I just always really appreciate their take on things. And not only is it entertaining, but it's also just like, I don't know, a helpful perspective where I feel like I'm not alone in this navigating faith in this current world?
Mine is M is for Mama, and it's this homeschool mom. She has 10 kids, and she's real, and she's in the depths of motherhood, but is trying to break the mediocre motherhood that our society pushes moms into. I really appreciate her perspective through faith and challenging women and moms to be better and dive deeper into their motherhood role. And so, yeah, that's kind of the role that I'm in. And I just really value women who are a few steps and years ahead of me in gaining their wisdom.
Abby, what time of day or when do you usually listen to podcasts?
Well, when I get a moment to myself, which is not very rare, or not, how do I say
Often?
Not very often. Let's see. When I'm sewing, I love to listen to a podcast. I'd say when it's like I'm creating, so like when I'm sewing or when I'm doing housework. Yeah.
What about you, Em?
You will find me listening to a podcast when I'm in the car or if I'm like cleaning or doing laundry. Sometimes I listen to podcasts in the shower. I'm really multitasking.
I actually
you know?
do that too. Yeah.
I know.
I like
because I'm like
ones in the shower.
trying to maximize my time. But it's usually for just, I don't know, I don't like silence. And so it usually fills space for me. What about you, Mom?
Oh, that's probably the same for me. Usually on my commute to work. Sometimes when I'm, working on different stuff or getting stuff done around the house too. I live by myself, so it's nice to have noise, especially when it's other people talking.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you feel a little less isolated.
But those podcasts that are a little bit more like intellectual, I kind of have to be able to have some like mental space. But there's this one podcast that you Molly, and I like to listen to, and I often listen to it as like background noise because it's mostly pointless information that they're talking about. But it's
for sure, like the pop culture podcasts, or I really love a good like Bachelorette recap podcast. So those kinds of things don't require a whole lot of mental energy.
I feel like when I'm needing a shift in my attitude, that's like another time that I like if it's been a hard day or my mind is, heavy or something, I feel like a podcast, faith-based, like a Jenny Allen podcast. She just really helps me like reground myself, and the people she interviews are just, really, really good people that help me remember like, okay, what is my purpose and what God's called me to. And anyway.
That's really cool. Yeah, I feel like podcasts play a little bit of a different role for me. I mean, inspiring, yes, but it's mostly, I'm mostly listening to just really random conversations or, dating podcasts or whatever to kind of commiserate about how terrible it is. But I think it could be really helpful for me to actually seek out podcasts that are more inspiring and maybe a little more life-giving in a different way. Maybe.
Well, and it's ironic because my life is full of so much noise and chaos, and if I'm gonna allow more noise and chaos, it needs to be very fruitful. So it's like if I have a moment, I usually like to sit in silence.
Wow.
So if I'm not going to sit in silence and I'm going to listen to something, it has to have depth to it, where maybe I should try a podcast that are like light and airy instead of like.
Which is so funny because you do love a good Housewives or Sister Wives, like Junk TV.
Looked in and see if they have podcasts.
I don't know.
Maybe they do. I do love Junk TV. Oh man.
Yeah. I guess sometimes I do feel the same way as you. I'd be like, on those days, like if I'm struggling spiritually, like the podcasts, like The Toast, or those just do not feed my soul. Like what I need in that moment. And so like a Ruth Chosen and like Grace Lay's podcast is
so good.
really good and encouraging, just to kind of reground you in like truth and perspective, which is a word that we clearly like to use. But here's the challenge of the first episode of Quiet on the Set. No. We're also joined by my husband, Kevin.
And my hubby, Alex.
They're usually bystanders, and they may or may not join this podcast one day.
But they're like the kind of like people who are the peanut gallery who like want in but don't want it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
who snicker.
They're the ones who say they're not interested in watching The Bachelor,
Yes.
and yet they
Who's
are
that?
invested.
What are they doing? What's she doing? Whoa, she's crazy.
No, these men are so special. It
The
takes
backbone.
Yeah, it takes a lot to, win the approval to get into the Evans family anyways, and these two men have definitely done that. So,
Yes.
you'll get to learn more about them in some form or fashion, I guess. But I'm looking forward to this. I mean, our relationship is so unique, and we've lived so far away from each other, and yet have been able to maintain this really deep relationship. And so I'm just really excited to, kind of like what you said, Abby, like capture these conversations in this capsule now, because I think that'll be really special just for us in terms of just like, recording this, but then also hoping that it, encourages others and inspires others to want to have, deep relationships with people. So I'm excited.
And if nothing else, it forces us to get on on the phone and have a conversation every week. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yep. Looking forward to seeing where A Word with the Girls is going to go.
Me too.
Okay. Love you. What do you say?
Love you more. Bye.